Alright everyone, it's time for Vermont Issues, episode 89. No, Vermont won't likely be the next state to legalize marijuana. Now, I was going to put a link in the description to like this Vermont Digger article talking about Vermont physicians and how they're basically fucked up in the head. They're like, oh, we need to take it slow on legalizing recreational marijuana, could become a public health crisis. Can we please look at the real statistics here and see what proportion of the population either smokes regularly or has smoked at least semi-regularly in the past? The number of people, I remember the last study I read, it was like 46% of people had at least tried marijuana. Something like a quarter of the population smoked it semi-regularly, and at least I think it was almost 20% smoked it religiously, like they smoke it on a daily basis. Okay, so in the state of Vermont, over 100,000 people are probably smoking weed more or less on a daily basis, and I don't see it listed as a public health crisis. So I'm not sure what these people are getting at. If they're already smoking pot, at least sporadically, some of them regularly, where's the crisis? Legalizing it just means that they can do it more openly. It doesn't negate DUI laws. It doesn't negate it as an aggravating factor in any other crime. Like, if you're really one of those devil's weed sort of, reefer madness people, don't worry. All those other laws are still in effect. It's just possessing and using the substance in a proper, totally non-violent, otherwise non-criminal manner won't get you thrown in the clink. That's the only real difference. We've already decriminalized it, and there's the other part. The Vermont physicians, we know that they're full of shit. We've got medical marijuana. It is recognized to be medically valid. Not for, all of the conditions that some of the homeopath bullshitters, that they say. They're like, oh yeah, cannabis oil cured my colorectal cancer. Cannabis oil cured my bunions. I smoked pot every day and my leukemia went away. Well, you're probably conflating correlation and causation there. I think you're wrong. But it's a treatment for glaucoma. It's a treatment for PTSD. It's a treatment for chronic depression. Certainly, it's medically recognized for these purposes. It's a treatment for pain. It's a treatment, certainly, for nausea. Hell, you give someone the munchies, they can keep the food down. It's often used for people who are getting chemotherapy. And it works! We know that it works. How do we know? Because it's actually been done. So it's medically significant. So sick people are using it. Small amounts are already decriminalized, so you can already have up to an ounce of it. And simply smoking that small amount is not going to get you arrested. Again, where's the public health crisis here? Vermont's physicians are full of shit. Look, how did you become physicians if you don't understand medicine? How did you you didn't become physicians to remark upon sociology. No, you should have studied sociology if that's what you intend to do. You don't know anything about drug policy. You know about curing ailments. You know about surgery or keeping people from getting sick. That's fine. They're already smoking the marijuana. If it was going to make a whole bunch of people sick, they'd already be sick. I would be much more concerned about tainted marijuana because it's not legal, and so all of a sudden 1,000 people end up in your ER with symptoms of PCP overdose or something like that because they were too dumb to realize that their drugs were laced. That's what I would be concerned about, but you didn't take that into consideration. That'd probably kill more people in a day than all the other regular old marijuana smoked in a year could possibly do anything to. Little Jimmy got high, he greened out a little bit, and he had a panic attack, and that was, a bad trip for him. But little Jimmy didn't probably go and hang himself. Little Jimmy probably didn't overdose on the marijuanas by injecting too many. It's just not going to happen. And by the way, to High Times and all these other people parroting about, oh, Vermont will be the next to legalize probably. Our governor won't sign it. He's dragging his heels. He doesn't want to raise the issue because he's a fucking coward. He's a coward, but here's the problem. Phil Scott knows full well that marijuana is not a public health crisis. He knows it's not a gateway drug. He knows it's not really itself problematic or symptomatic of any larger problem at all. We've got evidence, we've got states that have legalized, we've got countries that have legalized. Our state itself decriminalized several years ago. I think it was 2013, was it, or 2014? We've had legal medical marijuana in the country for a long time in various spots, including in deep red states. Montana, they had to deal with Obama, a Democrat, continuing to send the feds to raid their dispensaries. Oh, we can't have these horrible rednecks over here having their marijuanas. Give them whiskey instead, I suppose. That was Obama's answer to it. Even Obama dragged his heels on this. He didn't want to raise the specter of the issue. Why? Because he said, well, you know, people, they'll conflate it with socialism or something, you know, erroneously. Phil Scott's problem is he was elected by a group that includes a bunch of Republicans who already aren't hugely happy with him because he's come out and attacked Trump on several occasions. He doesn't want to piss off his remaining fans and go further left. He has to remain a centrist. If he raises marijuana as an issue, some of the more religious aspects of Vermont's right wing, now there aren't a huge amount of them, but they would flee supporting him. He's probably thinking ahead to re-election. He probably wants to wait until then, get a second term. But he's still a coward. Now, I would have legalized it on day one. I would have said, let the legislators send up a fucking paper. I don't care if it's handwritten. Notarize it, send it up to me. I don't really care what the terms are as long as it doesn't create a state weed monopoly. Let people grow a few plants. Let them smoke it. I don't care. It's not the state's business. It's not a public health crisis. No sane, rational individual at this point still believes that marijuana is a gateway drug. There's zero literature to suggest any real correlation in that direction. The real correlation is, hey, a bunch of heroin addicts and crackheads who get nausea and other symptoms smoked weed to lessen their withdrawal symptoms. Made it easier for them to be sober for a few days. That's why there was a correlation. No sane individual still thinks reefer madness mode. Oh, you smoked weed, you crashed your car. You smoked weed, you tried to rape a woman. You smoked weed and you killed your roommate. It doesn't happen. There is no correlation. We've got years and years of literature from European countries saying this same thing. Now we've got medical literature from parts of the US too, so we finally wised up enough to at least establish that it had potential medical benefits. Not that people didn't know to begin with. People were smoking it back in ancient times for its medical benefits. You don't have to be a weed smoker to understand that it is not the boogeyman that a lot of people cast it off as being. I smoked weed when I was in college, haven't in quite a number of years. It didn't do anything bad to me. I wish it had been legal then. I never would have smoked spice. Wouldn't that have been lovely? I'd probably still be smoking it now if it had been legal and I hadn't had my overdose. Yeah, I'd probably have a little green bag right next to me at the moment. You know, that might be a waste of money. Quit tobacco and then start smoking weed. By the way, one thing I will give them, smoking weed, while probably less harmful than smoking tobacco, it is still going to gunk up your lungs. Yeah, it is. And I know that weed smokers often, if they're like weed zealots, they'll say, no, it's not the same thing. This is actually like, it's fucking good for your lungs. I question that. I think putting burning vegetable matter into your lungs, not the greatest thing that you can do. By the way, I've gone a week without smoking tobacco, so yeah, I'm gonna fucking keep it up. And I'm not going back to smoking weed. People keep telling me to smoke weed and shit. I can't. It just gives me an anxiety attack. It wouldn't do anything for me. Trust me, I tried it post-OD. It's just the second I started feeling high with that sort of cannabinoid rush, it's like, oh shit, you know, it feels just like my overdose. And I freaked out. And it's not pleasant. Why would I want to do something that's no longer even remotely pleasant to me? That's about all. Peace out.